was I artistic as a child? The answer, probably no. I had inventiveness, but my best friend from morning kindergarten through high school, he's actually still a very good friend of mine, was a sort of a drafting genius, and the art education I had as a kid, basically, we had this guy who had this sort of a method that is shown to be basically insane. You know, like how to talk a kid out of doing art was his method. His method was to put a newsprint pad up on the board in front of the class and draw something. You had to copy it. And my friend Howard could do it perfectly, and I could not. You know what I mean? And it was something that did not bother me, but my assumption was that Howard was the artist and I wasn't. And it wasn't until until I was in college that I, came to the realization that I wanted to be an artist. I grew up in Princeton, New Jersey. I graduated from high school in 1965, and I moved out of Princeton like 3 days later. Not to say that it wasn't a great place to grow up, but it's time to move. Based on focus, I mean, this is my creative process. Based on focus, the idea just floats in from somewhere and appears, but it isn't because of some inspirational fact. You know what I mean? It's something else at work. There's some other. But it does it, like I say, it does it based on sort of an absorption with what amounts to the problem. And sometimes I do get ideas based on some small little thing that somebody says, or something that I see, something happens in traffic which triggers a thought process which gives me an idea. I don't really have any rituals other than sort of my ritual would be routine. You know what I mean? I work very hard. I've definitely collaborated with my wife on different projects, and I've had public commissions that have been collaborations, mostly with architects, but which basically can be great. I mean, the collaboration thing, in my view, there are three scenarios with collaboration. One is you have respect for your collaborator, and then it's beauty. You know what I mean? Then it just goes and cooks. The second one, which is nowhere near as good but acceptable, is if the collaborator does what you tell him to do. But there's no respect, then at least you can get the job done. And the third is when there's no respect and they don't do what you tell them to do, then it's a disaster. But I have to say I've been fortunate, like the few times that I've experienced all three of these, but I've been fortunate, like I say, to have the best scenario where there's mutual respect, where it's a true team effort. I like living in Rhode Island. I mean, can I live anywhere? The answer to that is probably not, for a number of reasons. I mean, I like the pace of Rhode Island. I also like the fact that it's an industrial town. There's a lot of sort of resources here that really are a big help in making work. So I mean, welders, the stone guy, casters, foundries, machine shops, which I find to be a big plus. There's a really nice artist culture here at Rhode Island, which is great. But it would be impossible to make a living in Rhode Island based on the largesse of Rhode Islanders. There just is not enough of them. You know what I mean? But I think it's a great place to be an artist. The first couple of experiences I had, people called me because there was first time my metalsmithing teacher where I went to an undergraduate school at Philadelphia College of Art passed away tragically at a very young age, and in the middle of the semester. And well, it wasn't the middle, but it was like the second week of the semester. So there was an emergency situation. That was my first teaching experience outside of I had teaching assistantships in graduate school. and and I had another scenario that was a sabbatical replacement at RISD, and for a while I taught at Rhode Island College, and which was a great, actually, really good place. I mean, very good students, entirely different than RISD. But about, I don't know, 8 years ago, I started teaching at RISD. The Wheeler piece was conceived in the fall of '07, and I think it was finalized in January or February or something like that of '08, and it'll be installed probably in August of '08. You know, it's K through 12 Wheeler or something. I think it goes K through 12, and which means that there's kids of all ages, and it was something that, you know, I wanted something that was accessible to that audience, and I wanted something that would sort of be a comment on the landscape. And I determined this space that's on sort of below sort of the main house that's on the Wheeler Farm, by the way, is a property that in Rhode, I mean, it's in Seekonk, sorry, that it's 200 acres or something like that. And so something like 50 acres are athletic fields and the other 150 are woods. It's a beautiful property in Seekonk. And I placed the piece below the main house on the property and at the edge of one of the athletic fields. And it can be seen from a lot of vantage points, you know. And it's something that kids can climb on. When my wife and I got out of graduate school, we started a studio, and we decided not to get jobs, but to generate all the income through the studio. And we both had jewelry skills. And so we had a wedding ring business for quite a while. And at one point, these two gay women came to our studio, and they wanted like these two women entwined around the finger, you know what I mean, and sort of fully sculpted, you know, in gold, you know, with ruby eyes or something like that, you know. So I, you know, figured out, calculate, you know, cost it out basically, and I told them it was going to cost them $4,000, and they said, "Oh, well, we only wanted to spend $100." And so I said, "Okay," and so I gave him a sterling silver band, and I had an engraver to engrave, and the sterling, there was like $10 worth of silver. And I got an engraver to engrave the two women on there for like $30. And so that was $40, and so we made $60, which at the time was, you know, acceptable.